Love staying informed? Subscribe now and get unlimited access to local news, weather, and sports for just 99 cents a month for your first 3 months at inforum.news/join. Read every story, listen to every podcast, and download the apps that keep you informed and on the go 24 hours a day. So head to inforum.news/join right now to subscribe. What are you waiting for? Get 3 months of local news for just 99 cents a month at inforum.news/join.
This episode is presented by Bakken Backers. After years of blocked permits and stifling regulations from Joe Biden, President Trump is unlocking America's energy potential.
We have more liquid gold under our feet than any nation on earth.
With executive orders for drilling and pipeline investments, just as he did in 2017 for the Dakota Access Pipeline.
And now I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it.
This is the moment to secure North Dakota's future, to stop radical outsiders who threaten our state's energy industries, and to grow our energy production, communities, and economy.
It's called Drill, Baby, Drill.
Support the Bakken and learn more at backthebakken.org.
You're listening to Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. I'm your host, Rob Port. If I sound distracted, it's because I've been busy covering this story all morning. I'm joined by my co-host, Chad Oban.
He's right of center, I'm left of center, both sides of the political spectrum.
I think it's cathartic. I think it's a necessary and proper debate. I'm glad we're having it.
And honestly, we have to do better.
Okay, I don't know why I'm getting blamed for this, right?
Welcome to Plain Talk, where we are fresh off another great live show at Peacock Alley in Bismarck. It was so much fun. Thank you to everybody who showed up. It was really successful. I hope everybody had a good time.
I think people had a good time, but they couldn't hear us, Rob. I actually had people say they wanted to hear us, which was a nice change of pace.
That was not. We had a little bit of an audio issue where, you know, I think it was a vicious cycle where we were trying to turn up the audio, but then the crowd couldn't quite hear us, so they're talking among themselves, so we turn up the audio again, and then we got to a point where if we turn it up any louder, it's going to bleed into our mics, and we're going to have back issues, and, you know, that part could have been a little better, but
it was so fun. It was so fun.
It was great seeing everybody. Thanks for everybody who showed up, including our guest, Representative Jeremy Olson from beautiful Arnegard, North Dakota, in McKenzie County, home of the Arnegard Spuds.
Arnegard Spuds. My dad was the team captain of the 1961 state championship basketball game.
Do you know how Arnegard got its name?
Yeah, it's actually a family name of one of the original settlers that came into the area.
I just wanted, because I know this is one. I don't know why I know this, but I know this.
It's actually my neighbors just down the road a little bit.
I was hoping to catch you out. That was my gotcha moment for you, Representative Olson. So it's come and gone. You passed. You did all right.
Yeah, what a brutal gotcha question he's asking you right off the bat here.
Okay. So we actually we're down to the 0 hour in the legislative session, but something that hasn't, I perceive, gotten a lot of attention. You know, the oil industry is obviously so important to our state.
Absolutely.
I mean, just direct revenues from oil taxes are an outsized part of our budget. I mean, depending on market conditions and things like that, as much as $1 out of every $2, sometimes more, of every dollar collected in revenues by the state of North Dakota is a direct tax on the oil industry. And that's before we count the income taxes that are paid by oil workers, the sales taxes that are paid by oil workers and oil companies, and property taxes and all the other things that the oil industry drives. But it's a finite resource. I think everybody knows this. You know, and we have to harvest it. So you've actually been working on a couple of bills, one of which has passed, House Bill 1483, which was related to the oil extraction tax rate for oil produced from new wells drilled outside of the Bakken and the Three Forks formations, which are kind of the famous ones, everybody knows about. So,
Actually, outside the geographic area, yeah.
right. So the legislature trying to sort of maybe incentivize some exploration outside of those traditional areas. And then another one, Senate Bill 2397, which is not passed yet. Wait, I should say it's passed both chambers. It's currently in conference committee to reconcile some differences. But that's related to a limited exemption for development incentive wells. And talk to us a little bit, because sometimes I think people get a little wrapped around the axle when it comes to anything that even looks like a tax break for the oil industry. And I understand why, people feel that way sometimes, but explain this. Why are these bills necessary?
Well, let's back up a little bit and just kind of step back about 15 years. In the early days of the Bakken boom, there was a lot of exploration, a lot of looking for oil where it was questionable. It involved a lot of risk, it involved a lot of cost, and many companies failed. Since then, they've kind of honed in on the middle Bakken and the upper Three Forks zones. Those became the proven zones for oil. You could drill in there, and you're pretty much gonna hit oil. You're gonna get a payday from that. So why take a risk on a zone that's not proven when you can almost guarantee a home run by drilling in these proven zones? So since then, we've been in harvest mode. We're drilling these formations out, and however, we're getting to the point where we're going to be becoming we're getting to the point where we're almost getting drilled out. So, most of the major companies are saying they have between 8 and 10 years or so of drilling of proven drilling to go. So we're kind of at the point where, we're continuing to harvest, but we need to do some hunting as well. And by hunting, companies are going to have to take a risk. They're going to have to drill and explore outside the Bakken area, or find some of those different layers within the Bakken and Three Forks zones that might be able to produce, or do some experimentation with enhanced oil recovery to supercharge some of these zones that have already been there. So in doing that, again, that involves risk, that involves cost, that involves resources that these oil and gas exploration companies could use somewhere else, Texas, New Mexico, maybe not North Dakota. So for us to continue to harvest this treasure and get this tax base, we need to find other sources of oil and gas outside of the middle Bakken and the upper Three Forks. Hence the bills that came out. 1483 specifically. It's a refresher on a sovereign tax incentive that was implemented early on, several years ago. And now, since then, the Bakken's kind of grown larger around it, so we're kind of redrawing the map on that. But the idea with that is it's gonna incentivize companies, maybe not the majors, but maybe some of the regional ones, the smaller ones, to maybe do some more conventional drilling, or maybe try horizontal drilling in zones that are not Bakken, outside that zone. Maybe not the biggest payday that the Bakken is, but who knows? They could find the next big boom in the Williston Basin. So in order to help them offset that cost, that risk, we're given a financial incentive. Now, it doesn't cost North Dakota, the taxpayer of North Dakota, because we're offering incentive for something that they might do. If they don't do it, there's no incentive to collect. So we're giving them, we're helping them hedge their bets, if you will. Give them a little bit of help on the risk that they're taking. If they're
we're trying to incent them to do something they may not have done otherwise.
Correct.
Yeah, get something rather than nothing.
Yes. So if they drill it and they get a dry hole,
We're out nothing.
nothing. if they drill it and they hit pay dirt, okay, they're going to get a reduction on the severance tax for a amount of time, amount of barrels, and then after that period's over, North Dakotans will be able to get the tax after that. So it's kind of a delayed gratification. So think of the upfront fee on a mutual fund. You're allowing that to happen on the front end to collect it on the back end.
Also incentive there, we're keeping some people working in North Dakota too, and they're paying sales tax, they're paying income tax, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, they're buying groceries, they're buying gas, they're tearing up our roads.
Representative Olson, one of the things that I found interesting about House Bill 1483 is the second section where there's going to be a study on the stripper well exemption, because I do think that is something that we hear a lot from the appropriators up at the Capitol, like a real concern about how the stripper well exemption is going to really negatively affect the state's revenues moving forward. Like I've heard people say, we're okay this biennium, but holy cow, coming up bienniums, we might be in a lot of trouble. I think the idea of studying this and figuring out if this is working makes a lot of sense. Can you talk about the conversations around the stripper well exemption and maybe explain what the heck a stripper well is to people like me and other listeners?
So a stripper well is a term used for an older well that is not producing as much anymore. It's not very economical. So by definition, it's 35 barrels a day or less of production is when a well can enter a stripper well status. And from that point, they're paying a reduced severance tax. They're still paying the royalties to the state and to the local political subdivisions, but they're not paying the severance tax. When you have a well that is towards the end of its life, you can either limp along and get a little bit, get a bit of it while you still can, or you can plug and abandon it. The idea behind having a stripper well status is these are wells that would probably they probably would not be economical to continue to operate without some sort of incentive. And that's where this stripper well status comes in. If let's say you have one of these older wells, these stripper wells, you get satted off and you have to go there with a workover rig. That's $800,000 million bill to do that. When you're producing 35 barrels a day, that numbers just don't work out. So a lot of times you'll abandon it. So these stripper wells are basically they're on life support, if you will. They're able to continue to go at a lower rate just because we're making it a little more economically viable for these companies to continue to keep them going.
And the concern there, though, is we've got so many wells that are transitioning from a full well to a stripper well.
Yes.
And that maybe some of the companies are figuring out how to use stripper wells in a lot more places to bring in oil, that it could potentially hurt state revenue moving forward. Is that sort of the concern?
Yeah. My understanding is that once it enters a stripper well status, it stays there. But part of the study, I think, is going to, my guess is the part of the study is going to be, okay, if somehow you're able to regenerate it, get it above that threshold, it could be removed from the stripper status. That's probably where the study, the conversation is going to be going.
It's an important study.
Yet to be determined. It's just it's a lot of smart people that are going to be studying that in the interim.
Right.
So everybody's talking about, and obviously these two bills that are passing and trying to incent some exploration outside of the most productive parts of our oil formations. But long term, obviously this is something we want to keep this going as long as possible in North Dakota. What's the long term outlook? Because it's about finding the right balance between, not taxing, exploration and innovation out of existence, but also, making sure that we're keeping a solid revenue base coming in, to offset, the impacts of the all this oil activity, but also serve, the citizens of North Dakota. And by the way, I really like this incentive stuff, because I think one thing we never account for in these, we have a very static view of how the industry goes about this development. And we forget that they are innovating and improving their ability to work in the different formations all the time. I mean, the Bakken boom was set off by innovations in fracking and horizontal drilling. There's no reason if we get into some of these other formations and they meet challenges and they innovate and find new ways, people who are a lot smarter about this stuff than I am, they get better at it the more they do it. So if we can incent them to do it, the more they do it, they get better at it. They drive down the cost of doing it, and it becomes more productive. But long term, I mean, what can the state do to make sure that we're going to ride this bicycle for as long as we can?
Well, biggest part is going to be enhanced oil recovery. That's going to be a big part of it, extending the life of these wells. A lot of your viewers might not realize it, but when you specific to the Bakken type of formations, you're going to get a majority of the life of the production off in the first 3 to 5 years. They come on really hard, and then the production declines very quickly, and that's just the nature of the formation. So in order to keep that production level up, 1.1, 1.2 million barrels a day, you got to keep drilling and bringing new wells online to replace those wells that are continuing to decline. The ones that were drilled 3 years ago are declining quickly right now. So you got to drill new ones to bring that balance back, to keep that level of production up. And again, enhanced oil recovery is part of it, but also finding other zones that are not proven yet. Finding the next proven zone will be key to continuing to get the treasure that we've been getting from under the ground for the last decade and a half.
So, Jeremy, as you know, I'm left of center, but I love oil because you know what? It pays for our schools, right? It pays for a lot of the things going on in this state. One of the concerns I have, and frankly, I wish more Democrats would be more aggressively pro-oil because of the things. And, obviously we want to protect the land and all those other things. But one of my concerns is it feels like the price of oil is so out of our control, right? It's a national thing. It's an international thing. It feels like there's chaos right now in so many different areas that are going to drive the price of oil up and down. What do you see for the future of, these incentives are great, but if the price is in the tank, it doesn't work. And so, how do you see the future of the oil industry working in North Dakota if we have sort of this destabilized national economy?
Well, there's things we can control, there's things we can't control. One of the challenges of meeting every 2 years is you're trying to budget based on a commodity that's going to go up and down like a yo-yo, and trying to plan that out 2+ years in advance. That's tough to do. So we're going to have to plan very conservatively as far as what were our expectations of production and as far as price. In my opinion, that would be one argument for having an annual session, but that's just me. To go back to the other statement you made earlier, I just want to tell a quick story about, have Democrats being more involved with it. One of my favorite Democrats from last session, Hamida Dakani, we, opposite side of the states, opposite parties, probably didn't have a lot of alignment on quite a few things, but the good thing about, working with these folks is I could have conversations with her. We'd have breakfast once or twice a week, and we'd have conversations. I would explain to her oil and gas policy, but also, hey, this is how it would fund the programs that are important to you, important to your party in the Fargo area. So building those relationships, having those conversations made things a lot helped those bills and those policies go forward with the help of our friends from the Democrat side.
Right. And I guess when I say I wish Democrats would do a better job, I'm mostly talking about national Democrats, if I'm being honest. North Dakota.
I think North Dakota Democrats would be the same as national Democrats, from the limited view limited data point.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk to you about so what was to me a a couple of surprising votes on the same bill in the House last night. First, there was Representative Bosch moved to hold Senate Bill 2400 over for a day. That failed, and both Chad and I were talking. I don't think either of us had ever seen that happen before. So they kept it on the calendar, and then when it came up, it went down in flames, 14-78. Senate Bill 2400 was the last school choice bill standing after the failure after House Bill 1540 was vetoed by Governor Armstrong. And Governor Armstrong had actually put in his veto message, hey, let's focus on Senate Bill 2400. It went down in flames. You were on the nay side. Can you give us the perspective from the floor? Were people are they just tired of this issue, or what happened?
It actually surprised me too. I mean, when someone, when the system leader gets up and says, move these two legislative days, I mean, that's almost kind of an autopilot, it kind of happens automatically. So, I was like, yeah, whatever. And then there's just a loud nay. I was like, that kind of stunned me a little bit. But yeah, I think there's a bit of a frustration and let's get this stuff over with kind of a mentality. And I was never going to vote for 2400 regardless, because my philosophy is, we're obligated to pay for public education, and we do. Anything else is, I just philosophically I wasn't going to be aligned on that one. So I was always a no. But I was extremely surprised that there was no debate on it, and it just went right to a vote, and it went down as hard as it did. Part of that was probably because it was later in the evening and people were tired, and we just had a few other bills that just sucked up a lot of time. So I think there's a little bit of mental fatigue on the floor at that point too. But there's been a lot of lobbying against 2400. Now, I'm a finance and tax guy. I'm an energy guy. This is not my expertise, but this is just my personal views.
So I want to I think 2400, Rob, and I will talk a lot about that after you're on. But another thing that happened last night and the day before is the Commerce Department budget and all the divisions, and it felt like the amendments were divided, and then the final passage was divided, and it. You
Is there 8? I mean, at what point were there 8 divisions between the 2 days?
It's ridiculous.
I agree with that statement, Chad. It was ridiculous.
and I'll be honest, like I don't like the commerce budget. I don't like the way stuff just gets put in and whatever, but I don't understand why you divide everything in the amendments one day, like Koppelman did, and then the next day basically have the same debate again, especially like you said, it's the end of the session. People are tired. So what was the feeling on the floor as, he stood up and divided these things another 42 different times, and literally the exact same conversation as the day before that went on? I felt bad, Representative Nathy. I mean, geez. I mean, he's up constantly just getting drilled with questions for 2 straight days.
Representative Nathy handled himself pretty well, very professionally. I mean,
Yep.
When some people get up or when some divisions happen, you can kind of hear an audible groan in the room. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. But I mean, do you think it's like that level of debate, like breaking things out, it's almost dismissive of the work that the committees are doing, to say, oh, we know better, and so let's debate every one of these things. So I'm not going to continue droning on this point, but I will tell you, as somebody who has cared about the 2400 vote, I was very annoyed by the Commerce Department conversation again.
Yeah, I wasn't tuning in yesterday for the Commerce Department budget. I was waiting for the 2400, and it was like, holy Toledo! Like, when
You blinked, it was done.
and the thing about it is, I guess I didn't watch the previous day's debate on the. I mean, I kind of glanced at it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but my impression was that for all the dividing and everything, it didn't really change anything. I mean, all the divisions yesterday passed. I guess I can't remember the previous day.
Divisions. I think most of the divisions, one failed, but I think most of the divisions passed with a same number of yeses and no. I mean, within five or so votes. Most of them passed within the same margins, and then the final one passed.
Are you concerned at all about the single? I mean, because the legislature got smacked down once again, or previously, for doing, hanging too many ornaments on the OMB budget Christmas tree. That was
Subject here is commerce, though. I mean, all these things have to do with commerce. I mean, those are, you have a variety of things, but they all revolve around commerce versus OMB.
that was one of the arguments. Representative Sue Ann Olson, in particular, somebody who stood up and kind of made that argument on the floor. And I mean, I thought it was a point, and it gets really hard. Like, what? I mean, listen, I work with words for a living, so I could probably argue my way to just about anything is in the same subject as just about anything else. I mean, really what matters is how the courts are going to feel about it. And I mean, I guess we don't know. We never know until somebody files a suit, I guess. But I mean, that doesn't concern you? You felt like all those amendments were in line?
I thought so. I mean, again, I disagreed with the premise that, a lot of these were, not part of the single subject. The commerce budget by definition is going to be pretty broad because you have different aspects of commerce. So I think all these things were germane to it. Now, that's one man's opinion. Someone might prove it wrong later, but I'd say the majority of the legislature agreed that they were part of the subject.
I want your take on one other thing, and it happens every session, this sort of appropriators versus policy committees, and you get to the floor and policy committee members are standing up and they're angry that appropriators have, added something that they killed earlier, or, appropriators are mad that, does it feel to you, and I understand this is just your second session, it feels more like it feels like that frustration is much more on the surface than maybe I've seen in previous sessions. And you're obviously in policy committees. Are you frustrated by at this point in the session where appropriators just get to sort of do what they want?
I think everybody's frustrated with everybody right now. I mean, we're getting close to the sunny day, and we're getting close to the end. So I mean, yeah, we're at the point where we're very ready to throw fists. I say that tongue in cheek, but that's the kind of frustration that's out there. Friendships are getting strained. Things are being said, things are being done on the floor that are, you wouldn't have done earlier in the session. So it's
and I would suggest to any of your colleagues out there, if it does come a time to throw hands, get on the team with the former state wrestling champion, Jeremy Olson. Make sure you're on his side.
Actually, there's three House members that are state champions in the House. So
who else?
Pretty cool. Matt Ruby, myself, and Mike Berg.
Really?
All three of us are wrestling state champions.
Wow.
I did not know that.
You learn something new every day. This is
I learned that over a drink with Mike Berg. So
this is the sort of content that people come to Plain Talk for.
Yeah.
Last question. You're on the Finance and Tax Committee, so obviously you've played a part in the winding road that we've been taking on property tax reform, and we're at loggerheads over skin in the game. Which is the cap on how much of the tax credit people could get. The House's position is, let's not do a cap. Senate's position is, they can't get any more than 75% of their property tax bill up to the full $1,650 credit. What do you think is going to come out of this? I was watching, because the Senate Appropriations Committee had 1168, which they've turned into a duplicate essentially of House Bill 1176. And then I just watched the conference committee on 1176, and it was a little amusing at the end, because Chairman Hedlund on the conference committee, I think they were supposed to be out at like 9:30, so it was like 9:25, and he's like, "We got a few minutes left. Let's maybe we could get the Senate," and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, "Well, like maybe we can get the Senate to agree to back off skin in the game, and we could kick this bill out tonight or this afternoon." And there was silence, and he says, "Well, maybe we should move a vote to put our Senate members on the record." And Senator Weber goes, I move that we adjourn.
Yeah.
And everybody started laughing, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I don't know, maybe things are cracking or starting to loosen up a little bit. How do you think that's going to come out? Are we on the skin in the game?
I'm looking around for that little magic 8 ball to give you an answer, because that's about as close as I could get to giving you an answer on that one, Rob. You got some very smart, very passionate people on these conference committees, and ultimately they want to do the best thing for North Dakotans. The end answer, that's what they don't always agree on. So they'll get there, but probably might have to throw some hands to get to that point. But all these guys, we hang out together. We socialize after hours too. So for the most part, we're all friends as well. So it's a process. And these guys on this committee, they're some of the wisest people in the legislature on this subject. So I just got to have faith that they're going to ultimately do the right thing, and come up with a solution that's going to be, what might not be the best answer for everybody, but it might be the least bad.
Well, you get to come back in 2 years and fix anything that maybe isn't perfect.
Well, Senator Weber had a story that he had gotten there's a letter or article in the paper talking about Senator Weber not fixing the property tax issue, and I think that was from 1978 to his father, Senator Weber. So that issue's been around quite a while. Senator Weber tells it in a much more entertaining way, but that's the idea. If this was easy, it would have been done decades ago. It's not easy, and are we going to get it perfect? Probably not. I mean, we're going to do the best we can, and then we're gonna come back. We're gonna reassess, see where we're at. Okay, it's not a matter of hitting the bullseye. You're gonna get on the target. We might need to tighten our shot group next session, but in the reality in the next session might change. In 6 years from now, our revenue picture might look a lot different. So will this formula work if we don't have the same level of revenue we have now? So it's always a moving target, guys.
Representative Olson, thanks for your time.
All right, guys. Pleasure to be here.
This episode is presented by Bakken Backers. After years of block permits and stifling regulations from Joe Biden, President Trump is unlocking America's energy potential.
We have more liquid gold under our feet than any nation on earth.
With executive orders for drilling and pipeline investments, just as he did in 2017 for the Dakota Access Pipeline.
And now I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it.
This is the moment to secure North Dakota's future, to stop radical outsiders who threaten our state's energy industries, and to grow our energy production, communities, and economy.
It's called Drill, Baby, Drill.
Support the Bakken and learn more at backthebakken.org.
Hey friends, we've got a new way for you to participate in the show. You can now call us or text us with your questions, comments, or anything you want us to discuss on Plain Talk. Just give us a call or shoot us a text message at 701-587-3141. That's 701-587-3141. It's super easy. Leave your message, tell us your name and where you're from, and we might feature it on an upcoming episode.
Thanks for listening to Plain Talk. Now let's get back to today's episode.
Welcome back. Just finished up with Representative Jeremy Olson. Interesting stuff about the oil, like being stewards and finding that right balance between, we obviously want the oil activity to be beneficial to the whole state, to the taxpayers, but also we can't kill it. We have to be cognizant of the fact that, they face challenges in a lot of, you had a really good point too. I mean, how much of what drives oil activity is just out of our reach. Like, it's not anything the North Dakota legislature or the state of North Dakota can control. If oil prices crater, they're just not going to drill, and it's not going to matter what we do.
It's always been one of my frustrations. I mean, you've been around long enough, the fights over the oil extraction tax cuts back in the day, and the idea that the people cutting those taxes were like, "Well, this is just going to drive folks to drill more." Well, maybe at the margins, but at the end of the day, if the price isn't there, the price isn't there, right? And if the price is super high, they're gonna drill.
Yeah. But the rebuttal to that is the margins do matter.
Sure.
And we can control what we can control.
Yeah.
And I again, we had I mean, that was a multi-session brawl over that. And I mean, I just liked the idea of having a flat tax. I didn't like the triggers. The Democrats didn't like that we lowered the top rate a little bit, but sometimes you got to give something to get something. And, that was the price of doing business. I think we got a good tax code now. It's predictable, it's relatively low, and it generates a heck of a lot of revenue for our state. That's what we want.
Yep. No, I don't disagree with that now, but I do think the idea that, people are going to make the determination on drilling or not drilling on just the tax rate is a silly sort of point of view. I mean,
But I also don't think anybody. It is not the factor, but it is a factor, and I don't think you can ignore it.
but okay, we can go back. The biggest factor is the price of oil.
We're gonna relitigate the hottest issue from the 2018 legislative session.
My favorite part of that whole debate, I mean, not to be nostalgic here, is Drew Wrigley was presiding and lieutenant governor, and Mac Schneider was the minority leader, and Mac was just going off. Like, he was just like rip roaring speech, and he was borderline, sort of pushing the envelope, and he was trying to get Drew to gavel him down. And Drew wouldn't do it. Finally, Drew gavelled him, and Mac and Drew were friends, right? Mac had worked in Drew's U.S. attorney's office and whatever, and so mild-mannered Mac Schneider got gavelled down for being a little bit too passionate about oil extraction taxes. Good stuff. Little political theater
from back in the day. I thought his Representative Olson's comments about 2400 were pretty interesting, because I think both you and I were surprised at how that unfolded. I was surprised that the floor voted not to carry it over for a day, and I think a lot of that was making room for school choice people to try to regroup after 1540 got vetoed, and they didn't get it, and then it went down in flames. And to me, I think it was really indicative of, in that moment, that evening, I think it was a lot of tired lawmakers who were just sick of the issue. A lot of them aren't that invested in it, and so they just killed it. And I do think, though, and I had a column that this ended up kind of got the school choice cause failed this legislative session because the private school interests just got too greedy. They wanted too much. And I think sometimes they think they're the majority, and they think of North Dakota as this conservative state, and school choice is a conservative issue. So of course it should pass. And it's like they're ignoring the practical politics of it, which is that most North Dakotans don't send their kids to private schools. A heck of a lot, I don't know if it's most or not, but a heck of a lot of North Dakotans don't live in a place where there's even school choice is even a choice that they can make, because there's no private schools around them. And I think it's just a tough sell when you have legislation that is so. 1540 was exclusively a subsidy for sending kids to private school. 2400 was spread out a little bit, but I mean, still in previous iterations was very heavily weighted towards people who send. I think the goal to getting school choice across the finish line is something broad that's going to appeal to a lot of people. Now, a lot of people were beating up on North Dakota United, and I wrote something. The president of Bishop
Ryan, not mine, not Ryan. Bishop Ryan.
I'm getting it right. Bishop Ryan was kind of going off, and North Dakota United killed this. And my argument is no, you guys did yourself in. North Dakota United, and just to be clear, Chad obviously works for North Dakota United. I think everybody knows that, but just to make that clear, North Dakota United is going to oppose any public dollars going to private school tuition. It doesn't matter what the bill is. You guys are going to be against it. To me, that's constant. And I know irrelevant's the wrong word, because I think your guys' input on this policy matter obviously is important. But that is what it is. There was a path to getting a bill through that made funds available for public schools, and they didn't take it. And that's entirely on the school choice private schools. That's on them. They screwed this up.
So obviously I have been working on this the whole session, and so had a front row seat on this. But I think I do have some observations. Two things. Last night, the decision to not hold it over, I think, was one, they were tired and they wanted to be done with it. But also, there's been 3 weeks of games with this bill where the House Education Committee gave it a do not pass. It wasn't sent to the floor. They tried to send it back to committee. The committee refused to reconsider it. So I think there was also just about a bunch of people like, hey, man, you don't have the votes, right? At some point, you just have to vote on something if you don't have the votes. But I think there's three reasons that 2400 went down, like three sort of big buckets. And the first one you and I talked about, I think, when we had Michelle Axman on early on. And I still think the public dollars for private schools is a poison pill in these bills, particularly because this bill got defined by that part of it, right? I mean, when people talked about 1540 and they talked about 2400 in the public sphere, they talked about them as being the same thing. Fair otherwise, the public hates public dollars going for private schools.
And again, I think that gets back to the point that I'm making is if you want to get that part through, you have to surround it with a lot of stuff people love, and they didn't.
That brings me to my next point. I think Michelle Axman did not do a good job of building consensus and community to help with her position. And I will say the reason for that is on 2400, we heard from the conservatives that 90% of this money goes to public school parents. So they didn't like it. But at the same time, there was not one public school parent that offered testimony in support of this bill. There was not one homeschool person who offered support of this bill. So what you had is the conversation was all around the private school piece.
But that was both 2400 and 1540?
Correct. Yeah, 2400, there was no public. So you didn't have sort of that buy-in from the public school parents. So the whole conversation about 2400 was, again, just about the voucher piece of it, not that broader side of it.
And I think that goes back to the controversy we had during the interim before the legislative session even started, where they were holding interim, I don't know what they were calling it, task force or committee meetings, where that were kind of secretive, that were only open to select people. That is the wrong way. If you want to build a consensus around something, that is the wrong way to do it. Yeah, your enemies are going to show up and they're going to give you a hard time, but that's part of the process. And you've got to be able to adopt what they're or react. I mean, even if you can't find common ground with them, you've got to understand where they're going to be coming from so that you can rebut them effectively. And
I do think that's part of the problem, right? This bill was drafted in secrecy and at a task force. Then the bill did not get done in time, so it was introduced as a delayed bill. By the time the House voted on it, the Senate voted on it, there wasn't even a fiscal note yet. I got a text from a lawmaker last night who actually voted for 2400 at one point. And he said the only about Port's column tonight, the only thing I'd add is that 2400 also lost because the prime sponsor didn't collaborate with others. She assumed they all would just trust her because she did a year and a half of work on it, which, if she were strategic, would have included building a coalition of supporters prior to the session, right? And so
I think that's exactly right.
Yep. The other thing that I would just say is that really hurt this bill is the cost. I mean, there is a reason why no other state has an ESA that includes public, private, and homeschool, because it's super damn expensive, because you're including 120,000 folks. And so in order to get that price tag down, it has to be such a small amount of money going to everybody. And you said, get the system in place and expand from there. But when we're trying to get property taxes done, we have an economic outlook that got a lot worse when we got the Moody's report. It's hard to justify spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a program like this.
And chaos in the White House. We don't know how many more, federally funded projects in our state that we're going to have to replace funding for, react to. So yeah, I mean, the uncertainty killed it. But I think you could get the bones in place and keep the costs down. And even people say, well, this is a pittance. This doesn't do anything. Well, maybe it's a pittance for now. And then we'll find out, well, what parts of this are people interested in? Maybe we could cut some off, add some, we can iterate. I mean, I really, and again, I am passionate about education savings accounts as a concept. I think if you do it right, they could be great no matter how you educate your kid, whether it's public school, private school, homeschool, they could be great. But you got to, I mean, the political realities are what they are. All along, I think the metaphor we've been using is you got to thread the needle. It's a tough one to thread. One way you do it is get small at first. You can get bigger
Right.
later, but get small. And
But again, that creates the difficult political reality of, so you're going to spend $50 million to give everybody $150? Like what's the cost benefit analysis of that as a lawmaker? That's hard. That's
Yeah.
hard to do. And again, I point to the fact that no other state has done this broad sort of thing because it is so difficult to
Yeah,
make
I mean,
it substantial enough, but be efficient and
you keep narrowing it down until you thread the needle, and then you iterate. I mean, I think that's the path forward. And again, they could have done that. I mean, the seeds were here, and they could have gotten. And it's not about getting to something that North Dakota United is going to agree on, because
no, understood. And just to be clear, I'm sort of doing an analysis from the outside that how this all played out was perfect for me, right? They defeated the Bills. I want to defeat it.
exactly. But I mean, because everybody was like, well, North Dakota United killed it. Well, the thing is I mean, you empowered North Dakota United by creating a bill that was going to unite a lot of disparate North Dakotans from all across the political spectrum against it, because it was you're going to ask them to pay for something, pay a lot of money for something that doesn't benefit them really at all. So
I appreciate people thinking North Dakota United did this. But I think the problem is, at least Father Nelson, Bishop Brian, thinks
it wasn't just him. I've got a lot of emails complaining about you guys to me.
okay, good. Well, I mean, sometimes people get frustrated with success, but I think the bigger problem that it had is, again, this concept, public dollars for private schools, and that's, again, how 2400 got defined, because there was nobody talking about the public piece of it. This isn't just a Democrat thing. This isn't just a Republican thing. There are MAGA people all over the state from the far right who hate the idea of the elitism that they see when they're living in their small town and their kid's basketball team lost to Bishop Brian, who recruited play, right? I mean, that's just sort of this sort of, if you're in a small town and you're watching the Class B basketball tournament, you're cheering against Bishop Brian and Shiloh in those private schools. That's just the way it goes.
I want to say something about Senator Michelle Axman, because her bill was the last one standing, and I think she did a lot of excellent work. But she made some mistakes along the way. I have a ton of esteem for Senator Axman. I think she's a great lawmaker. I think she's got a bright future in North Dakota politics. She's told us openly she aspires to be the governor one day, and I will tell you, I'm a little bit enthusiastic about that. Granted, that's down the road a ways, and we'll see how the tides come in and out until then. But I like that idea. I think she could be a great governor. But there's a lesson for her in this to learn about consensus building and about getting something like this across the line. Sometimes you got to give something to get something. And I mean, I empathize too somewhat in the position that she's in, because she's got, some pretty loud private school choice advocates who didn't want to compromise, and they weighted heavily towards private school tuition. She also had House Bill 1540 on her right flank that she had to account for. Not an easy position to be in. And it's so I even with the mistakes that Senator Axman may have made, I think the problem is the school choice people have to tone down their expectations of what they're going to get out of this.
So I think that Michelle Axman did more work on this and probably understands this issue better than nearly anybody at the session. And so I give her great respect. I have great respect for her for that. I mean, I disagree with some of her conclusions, but I have great respect for her. She puts in the work. She understands policy. The strategy behind this was very, very complicated in order to get to the finish line. You said, you think there is a path. I'm not 100% sure there was a path on this because of the makeup of the legislature and these factions. And we saw it last night with the vote. I mean, cut off their nose to spite their face. There are a lot of people up there who are willing to do that. And when you get to the end of the session, sometimes it's not about policy anymore. It's just about whose name is on the bill and who do you like at that moment, all that. So I think there's some strategic errors that took place, but I'm not 100% sure even if she was running a perfect game, she could have got 2,400 through. It would have had to be changed pretty dramatically.
The other thing is the progress on property taxes. And like I said, the 11, there were two very interesting. There was a Senate Appropriations Committee meeting on 1168 where they gave it a due pass. 1168 it started out as Representative Lauser's property tax bill. It's been hoghouse. It's now basically.
Does he take ownership of it anymore? I don't know does he like it?
I'm still on it, so that's how it works. But it's basically a duplicate of 1176. They gave it a unanimous due pass. The rumor is that, if there's not by Monday, if there's not, some magical consensus on 1176, that Hoag's going to bring 1168 to the floor. Senate Majority Leader David Hoag is going to bring 1168 to the floor and pass it and create a duplicate bill. For the life of me, I don't understand the tactics there. I don't know what that accomplishes per se, but that's what they're going to do. Meanwhile, so that happened, but it was interesting that the Appropriations Committee chair, Brad Beck et al., kind of started to make the case against skin in the game, the cap on the property tax credit. And he kind of got Senator Paul Thomas, Senator Dick Dever, and others kind of spoke out, against him on that. But it was interesting to see the chair of the Appropriations Committee kind of saying,
and not only the chair of the Appropriations Committee, but he's on the conference committee discussing 1176.
Is. So that was interesting. And then the other thing was speaking of the conference committee, as people probably heard me say earlier in the show, towards the end, Hedlund was like, well, maybe we could get our House members on the record about skin in the game. And Senator Weber, who I love Senator Weber. He is so funny and such a great, even when I disagree with him, is such a great, I don't want to say participant. He really does a good job. But
he's a happy warrior. That's how I describe it.
I like him. He's a gentleman. But he moved to adjourn and everybody started laughing. So I don't know. From that, I kind of see some cracks maybe in the Senate's position, but who knows? It's going to be interesting.
Rob, they're supposed to be done on Thursday or Friday next week.
It's day 70.
Yeah.
So they have
so at some point, somebody has to blink. At some point, they have to move these bills through. I thought Representative Olson, talking about people are ready to throw hands. Obviously, he said that in jest.
But he doesn't, right?
Absolutely. Speaking of gentle warriors, happy warriors, people's nerves are frayed. People are crabby with each other, and it's coming out publicly on the floor, but I think behind the scenes as well. At some point, I've got to believe Senator Hoag is going to see that there's no path for him with what he wants here. But, maybe with Thomas and Dever and others sort of holding tight on the skin in the game thing, maybe the Senate will. But, man, here we are, day 70. They got to make some decisions. Listen close.
The thing is, it's not just the House that supports the House's position. It's also the governor who's got to sign these bills into law. And it's really interesting. I again lament not bringing this up with the governor. I have a feeling he would not have given us an answer.
I don't know if anybody would. Kelly Armstrong would be the guy who'd give us a straight up answer on this.
Well, maybe, but because it's kind of the nuclear option, but he could call them back into session. He could keep them in Bismarck if they don't give him what he wants on property taxes. So I guess it's a question of how committed is he to his position? Would he go to that length? And politically, he'd have a hell of an argument saying, I don't want them to stay in Bismarck, and I'm sorry it's going to cost you taxpayers, but they're still in Bismarck because they won't deliver property tax relief that doesn't cap the amount of relief that you can receive. That is a powerful political argument. So
and then you've got the economic argument, right? I want to give people in rural North Dakota the full property tax relief, the same amount that people in the cities are getting.
And if it wipes out their property tax bill, so what?
So be it. But if you're Kelly Armstrong, that's what the message is. I want to get people in rural and urban areas the same amount of relief. This other plan screws rural North Dakota. And by the way, we're also not eliminating any of your ag land property taxes either. I think Kelly's in the right place here, and I don't know how the Senate majority messages this skin in the game argument to the public. Like, it doesn't make sense. There's no constituency for it.
I mean, as angry as North Dakotans are about property taxes, and they're pretty angry, I just don't think it's a winning message to tell them we're really concerned about how much property tax relief we're going to give you. Like, they're sitting about it. And we think that if we give you too much, you're going to stupidly vote for every bond measure that comes in front of you. Like, that's the argument. That's not going to win anybody over.
And I can't remember what day it was where Glenn Bosch basically said, I hate even the term skin in the game because it's suggesting that working families that own houses and send their kids to school and whatever don't have skin in the game. I mean, as people
that are paying, all the other taxes that people pay.
Yeah.
I think it's a tough argument. So I expect the Senate to cave at some point. The question
better be soon.
How long it's going to take. I don't want them to have a special session. I'm ready for my summer to begin with this stuff. with this. Speaking of people getting ready to throw hands, I just got a text from a lawmaker. It was Ben Koppelman's doing it again. And it's a memo from Legislative Council about proposed division of proposed amendments to engrossed bill, Senate Bill 2012, which is the Department of Transportation budget. So dividing more bills on the floor. I think people are getting really, really tired of that.
And here's the thing. He's not winning any of these.
Yeah.
But he's building up his constituency, I suppose. Somebody said to me the other day, it's really too bad that Ben Koppelman's the one who's actually running the House right now. And I think it was
not because he's not getting his
not successfully, but he certainly is controlling the agenda and the pace.
Also, he lost his election to legislative management.
I heard he lost the runoff.
Yeah,
because they were tied, right?
Yeah. So he lost there, and then he's doing all this stuff, and I obviously the audience for this is not in that legislative chamber because he's just annoying people who are in the legislative chamber. The audience.
Whoa! It might be the audience might be his section of the legislative chamber.
Well, I mean, we look at the divisions on the commerce budget. The roughly 40 people who were voting with him on most of those, that's his. But also, they have a larger audience outside where they're saying, look what we're doing. And I mean, there's an audience for that. There's an audience for just fight constantly on every hill. And there's an audience for that, and an audience that even doesn't really care about ultimately accomplishing something constructive.
What frustrates me, Rob, and this may make me sound like a conservative, but it's maybe that populist side of me. I hate the process. I hate what he's doing to slow down this process. But on some of these commerce amendments, I agree with them. I think that they're spending on things that the government shouldn't be spending on. I mean, it's sort of like the Doge conversation. I mean, it would be interesting.
Get some examples.
Well, I don't know that we should be spending $10 million on science centers in Grand Forks and Fargo just because Bismarck has a science center and that the state fund in Minot got them, right? I don't know that. I mean, so now Grand Forks get one, so then Jamestown gets one. I mean, is that the job of the state? Because one effective Bismarck legislator got money sessions ago for the Bismarck one, and then somebody did in Minot. Like those kind of things.
Senator Karen Krebsbach, the queen of bringing home the bacon for Minot.
My guy Bob Martinson got it done for Bismarck. But I think those kind of things. I think the TR library conversation. I'm a supporter of the TR library conversation, but I do have some sympathy for the legislators who stood up and said, we were told the last time we gave $50 million that was going to be it. And here we are again, and you're asking for another $50 million. I think those are really, really good conversations to have. I think that there isn't enough scrutiny of the state's economic development programs and the handouts that we're giving to businesses to move into North Dakota. Are we getting the money we should? The commerce program of getting workers to come to North Dakota. We're doubling down on that, and it's brought nobody to North Dakota. I mean, so I think we can agree some of those things probably could use a little more scrutiny.
I agree. And I really don't like the practice of slipping. I supported the drone replacement program because I think it's coming. And we had to do it. I think it was stupid that they killed it earlier in the session. I'm glad it's going to pass. But I hate also like taking things that or the casino bill. And again, I support our friends.
You too.
Although I think we need to have a larger conversation about gambling because it seems like it's siloed where only certain interests are allowed to do it. Like either we're going to legalize gambling or not. But whatever. I mean, our friends at Turtle Mountain want, they own property. They want to develop it. They want to do a business that they're obviously very familiar with and have a lot of experience doing. I'm not necessarily opposed to that. But again, I feel like some of these things should stand on their own. And I don't like the idea of passing things because people have to pass a budget, which is what these are being amended into.
So I also wish that the North Dakota legislature could have a conversation about our Native American friends without saying offensive things about them.
And let's be clear, it's very specific members of the legislature. There are many members of our legislature that have an enormous amount of respect.
They've managed to not say one racist thing so far this session. No, I agree with you, but it's ludicrous that Representative Koppelman stood up. Okay, you set it up, but it set up the Diane Larson part that led. I mean,
yeah, we had Diane Larson, who I think back in February made comments, and it was about this casino issue regarding, basically, wondering if the tribe had cartel money, like drug cartel money behind them for this casino. And then, obviously that was, we actually had the former Indian Affairs Commissioner Scott Davis talking about that, just, how ridiculous that comment was. Then we had Representative Mike Schatz, stood up, and it was during the debate over Attorney General Wrigley's sentencing bill, and he was talking about how, Standing Rock he was like North State Bureau of Criminal Investigations. People can't even go down there because it's dangerous and terrible, which is obviously not an accurate description of our neighbors at Standing Rock. And then we had Representative Koppelman, who stood up and likened this casino development to the Fufang controversy and sort of insinuating that it was Chinese communists who were behind this casino. And it's like, God, I can understand, like, there's a compelling argument to be made about maybe we don't want, we're concerned about the amount of gambling that's taking place in this state. I understand that argument. And you can make it, and it doesn't make you anti-Native American. But when you're constantly treating our Native American friends like they've got these shadowy connections to communists or cartels or their communities are just crime-addled drug havens, stop it. I mean, first, it's not accurate. It's just
again, Representative Davis has to stand up and say the Turtle Mountain tribe has nothing to do with Chinese communist interests.
They may be the least communist people in North Dakota, insofar as they've been here longer than the rest of us.
Right.
Like, people have been here for thousands and thousands of years. At the end of our interview with Chuck Suki, he was talking about how they were here before any Sukis or Schmitz or Ports or Obans or anything came over the hill. We forget that sometimes. Yep. And I say that as somebody, like, I don't necessarily like, it was all our land and it was stolen. And yes, it was stolen. But what do we do about it today? Like, we're going to kick the people. We're going to steal it back from people who've been living there for generations. That's a tough issue. I don't want to bring that up in the.
Yeah, we're not talking about reparations right now.
I'm not talking about reparations, but I'm somebody like, it's not like I'm some hokey liberal, like, I just treat them with respect. I don't understand.
I don't know, man. A lot of people on the social medias have been referring to you as a hokey liberal for a few years now.
I tell you what, if treating our friends at Turtle Mountain or Spirit Lake or Standing Rock or any of our other Native American communities, if treating them with respect, that they're at the same level as the rest of us, they're Americans and they're North Dakotans, and I'm glad they're my neighbors. If feeling that way makes me a liberal, then whatever. I don't care.
Whatever is right. I think you and I can both agree with that.
All right, we're going to end it there. Thank you again for everybody who showed up for the live show. We're going to have more in the works. Over the summer, we'll announce those details as we finalize things. Once again, as always, if you want to leave us a voicemail, send us a text, 701-587-3141. Really appreciate that. Also follow us TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, X, at Plain Talk ND. I was looking at some of our subscribers on Spotify in particular. Spotify for podcasting, this is nerd stuff, but they have a lot of stats because it's just the nature of Spotify that you could track a lot better than you can just like because people use so many different apps, so it's kind of hard to get listener numbers or whatever. Our subscribers on Spotify are up 65% over the last year, which is just really, really strong growth. Our YouTube channel is pretty new and we're still growing there, but the growth there has been great. So thank you for everybody who's been tuning in. Really appreciate it. And again, if you've got feedback on the show, things we could do better, things you're curious about or whatever, once again, 701-587-3141. Text us, leave us a voicemail. And if you just want to give us feedback and not have us read it on the show, just mention that. We're not going to put you on the show if you don't want to be. All right. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk again.
That's it for today on Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. Plain Talk is a production of Forum Communications Company. Got a question, comment, or suggestion? Leave us a voicemail or send us a text message at 701-587-3141. That's 701-587-3141. If you haven't subscribed to Plain Talk yet, you can find us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For those of you who are already hooked, give us a rating or review. And don't forget to share or tell a friend. Special thanks to my co-host Chad Oban, and from myself and everyone at Plain Talk, thanks for listening.
Really? All three of us are wrestling state champions.
Wow. You learn something new every day. This is the sort of content that people come to Plain Talk for.